Arsenal won 3-0 today against FA Cup holders. That scoreline reads like a formality, but there was a spell in the second half where Manchester City had the ball for long stretches and made their way into Arsenal's final third so many times, but came away with nothing. And I think the reason why is actually the story of the match. And that takes us to what I will call the Arsenal's biggest up today. But before we get there, there's a number from the first minute of the game that tells you almost everything. For me, this game was really about Arsenal. It wasn't about overplaying Manchester City. City had 59% possession of the ball and entered the final third almost as twice as often as Arsenal did. So this was a game about conversion. Arsenal took their moment, City didn't. And that difference is exactly where Arsenal has matured in this season. Now, Calafiori scored inside the first minute, which changed the entire shape of the afternoon. Arsenal didn't need to chase the game. So they sat in, let City have the ball in areas that didn't hurt them, and picked their moments on the break. Havertz doubled it before halftime with a header, and City spent the rest of the match doing what you would expect of a team who's chasing a two-goal deficit should actually do. And that's territory, crosses, pressure, without ever really threatening Raya's goal. Now, given Raya made a couple of saves which he needed to make, but I felt those saves were very routine and what you would expect a player of Raya's quality to do. Then 3 minutes into the second half, Ødegaard made it three. More about Ødegaard in a second. And that game was effectively over as a contest. And strangely enough, the first goal is where my first up begins. So up number one for me is the foundation. Arsenal defended the game, not just the box. Arsenal defensive control was the platform that this game was actually built upon. This performance was absolutely electric. Look, Arsenal had 16 tackles to City's 11. They also had 9 interceptions to City's 4. And this is the number that absolutely surprised me. Arsenal were dispossessed just 4 times in the whole game. City lost the ball 12 times. Take a look at the average position map from this game. Look at the compactness of that back four and the middle. White, Mosquera, Gabriel, Calafiori sitting in a tight horizontal band with Gomes and Luis Kelly screening just in front of them. There is no gap between the lines for City to play through. And that's not accidental. That's a deliberate mid block designed to let City have the ball in front of them and nothing behind. So City had the possession, had the final third entries, but it didn't have was time on the ball in dangerous areas because Arsenal were winning it back before it became a problem. Against a genuinely inferior side, right? City having 59% possession would be terrifying, right? Against anybody, but against Arsenal, it barely registered. And for me, that is a defensive identity that Arsenal has built over the years. It's not an accident and it's not a one-off. This is what Arsenal are right now, a team that are very, very difficult to break down when you're the opposition. And the next up for me, guys, up number 2 is really, really personal. Ødegaard looked himself again. Ødegaard's performance was the sharpest I've seen him in a long time. A goal 3 minutes in the second half. Now, look at his heat map, guys. See where he was operating predominantly. The red zone isn't stocked in his own half. It so often was last season. It's spread right across the width of the middle and the final third, with the real density just outside the box. And if you watch our Ødegaard's deep dive last season, where I talked about the evolution of the number 10 and, what Ødegaard, was missing and whether there was an opportunity for him to step up right this season. And he's done exactly that. Now, granted, this is just one game. But I saw Ødegaard releasing the ball a lot quicker than he did in last season. He was hesitant last season. This time around, he was willing to let the ball go. And that tells you a lot. If you look at the progressive carries that he had in this game, it actually shows that he released the ball a little bit more. And his influence was not just in the build-up, was rather in the box. Now, you want to go back and watch that video if you haven't. But I think this performance was almost the inverse of what we've come to see Ødegaard in the last couple of months. And for me, this was a player that felt like he was making up for lost time, felt he was making up for the performances that he wasn't putting in, and realizing that if he needs to be the captain of this team, he needed to show example and drive this team forward. Maybe Ødegaard feels like the Premier League title last season was won in spite of him. And maybe he wants to make sure that if we are to go on and be successful this season, he plays an integral part with it. And listen, I have that any day. If that mobility is real and is not a one-off, then Arsenal's biggest creative outlet has just found another gear going into the league this season. Now, remember that Calafiori goal inside the first minute? That's what my third up is, guys. Look, the defining positive for me was Christos Tzolis, right? He delivered end product from a standing start. Like, this guy became a difference maker in the final third, and I see why all the noise has been about him. And I have to confess, I didn't really know much about Tzolis until I started watching him in Arsenal colours in the preseason. And look, I haven't really gone back to watch his previous games, and maybe I'll do that and spend some time analysing him. But this game, right, look at his numbers: 2 assists, 3 key passes, 2 big chances created. Listen, if you pull up the passing network for this one and look closely, because this is Arsenal's own combination map, right? You see Ødegaard, you see Tzolis, you see Calafiori, you see Havertz, all interlinked in tight triangles just outside City's box. And watch how often the ball cycles through Ødegaard centrally before it reaches Tzolis wide, and how often Tzolis and Calafiori are combining directly down that left-hand side. Calafiori was impressive in this game. And for me, that's 4 attacking players all featured in our first up, second up, and our 3 up in this video, repeatedly finding themselves in pockets of space. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a rehearsed pattern. And I'm going to be looking out for this more as we go into the season. Arsenal now have a genuine goal threat from Ødegaard and a genuine creative outlet from the left, combining in the same relationships. And listen, we did a video about the left-hand side of Arsenal, what Arsenal needed, and there were lots of talks about the players that can potentially go in. But I don't want to get too over-excited about Tzolis in terms of one game, right? This is why I think that Martinelli still has a part to play in this game, because we know that if we want to do what we want to do this season, we're going to need the help from everybody on that left-hand side. Now, there's plenty to like, right? But a 3-0 scoreline against Manchester City hides something that even Arteta will know. Because for large parts of that second half, City had exact kind of control that better sides will eventually polish. And that brings me to my first down, right, guys? The one mistake that mattered, right? Even in a comfortable win, Arsenal, one defensive lapse is worth flagging. Arsenal were responsible for a single error leading to a shot. And I know that we're peaking, right? But I think that in a 3-0 win, it's a footnote. It's still a mistake, so to speak. But I think that, again, sharper finishes than City in this Community Shield game. That's a goal considered, and it could change the momentum of a game. So I think for me, it's about making sure that this is not a recurring pattern, right? And down number 2, letting the game come back into the room, right? It didn't make any difference in this game, but I think we've seen time and time again. And if you look at the numbers, Arsenal allowed City spells of control they didn't need in this game. Now, City had 582 passes to Arsenal's 413. And I know you watch a lot of that game. A lot of that was, City, having territory. Um, but for me, I just think that, if you look at this momentum graph, there's genuine sustained City spells running through last parts of the second half. And I know that, yes, the tie was open, but I don't want Arsenal to be conceding and giving out possession and territory and momentum, to teams across the season, because we all know what it is. Just one goal can change the dynamic of the game. And listen, in this particular game, it didn't make any difference. But I think going forward, we want to be looking out for that, right? Because this is the same pattern we flagged before, when Arsenal used to be 2 or 3 goals up and then the concentration drips. There's something that I always remember from Shannon Sharp. He's a NFL legend, Hall of Famer. He used to play for the Denver Broncos. He's got a great show on YouTube. And he always says that, don't tolerate something that you will not accept in a loss, in a win. And I think when you have a good performance and a win like Arsenal had, I think it's more important that we are even more observant, maybe not critical, of some of the things where Arsenal can actually improve on. And down number 3, I think for me, it's this one is interesting, right? Because what does this front line look when everyone's up to speed, right? The bigger strategic question isn't any one performance, right? It's how Arteta settles his front line as the squad comes back to full strength. Madueke started and was withdrawn at the hour for Saka. Guimaraes started centrally, was replaced by Rice. Every one of those changes worked seamlessly today. No drop-off, no disruption. That's a good sign for depth. But it also means that nothing is settled. And I think it's really going to be interesting in the next couple of minutes until this transfer window shuts. How do we keep all these players happy? Gabriel Martinelli couldn't even come into this game. There was no space for Max Dorman, who had played all the preseason. And I actually thought Max Dorman might play in this game. Merino didn't even get a shout, right? So Saliba is out. I love the depth that Arsenal has. But I'm also concerned that we still wanted to bring Rice into the game, still wanted to bring Saka into the game. And I would have hoped that we would have eased them back into the intensity of things, maybe give them 5-10 minutes. And so for me, I think that Arteta would need to rotate very freely between August and December. And I think that raises a lot of questions about the contribution of players in the Arsenal team. Right, look, we take the result for what it is today. It's not proof that Arsenal are unstoppable, but I think it's a baseline. Guimaraes, starting, Saka, Rice, Madueke, hopefully they're easing them back in. And today showed that whoever was on the pitch, their identity holds. And I think that's the real takeaway from this Community Shield. It's not the scoreline, but the evidence that this squad can absorb change and keep functioning at the same level. Listen, we're breaking down lots of Arsenal games over the season, and I'll be doing in-depth analysis. So check out my channel for some of the analysis that I've done about Arsenal. And if you really enjoy this sort of analysis, if you enjoy this sort of conversation about Arsenal, hit that like and subscribe button, and then share it with as many Arsenal fans as you can. We'll be breaking down the Coventry game as well. Look into that. So until I see you guys in the next one, come on, you Gunners.